Hello and welcome to my first standard gameplay video on the official MTG Arena channel, so thank you to Wizards for having me, and today I've got a pretty spicy one in store, mono-white Portal to Phyrexia. I've already featured a blue-white version on my channel, but mono-white gives us access to a few unique tools that make this deck stand out. And Portal to Phyrexia is the namesake card of the deck, a 9-mana mythic rare artifact, and when it enters a battlefield, each opponent sacrifices 3 creatures, so a great way to stabilize. And at the beginning of your upkeep, put target creature card from any graveyard onto the battlefield under your control, and it also turns into a Phyrexian in addition to its other types. So Portal to Phyrexia is incredibly powerful, but of course comes with a price tag of 9 mana, which is not trivial to cast in Standard, but we're not really trying to cast it for 9 mana. Instead, we want to try and discard Portal to Phyrexia using either the Connive from Rafine's Informant, which can also maybe give it a +1 counter, and then we also have the Restoration of Aiganjo, whose second chapter allows us to discard a card to potentially return a permanent card with mana value 2 or less from our graveyard to the battlefield tapped, so it can maybe get back a cheaper creature that died, or can also bring back a land if we just want to ramp with Restoration. But if we're holding a Portal to Phyrexia, we can maybe discard that instead. And once Portal to Phyrexia is in our graveyard at 5 mana, there's Invoke Justice, quadruple white, not a problem in our mono white deck, and then can return any permanent card from our graveyard to the battlefield, and then distribute 4 +1/+1 counters among any number of creatures and or vehicles we control. So that's a great way to bring back Portal and completely wipe the opponent's board, in addition to increasing the power toughness of the few creatures we may already have in play. And then we also have one copy of Repair and Recharge, which is similar to Invoke Justice, and what it does here can bring back an artifact, enchantment, or planeswalker card from our graveyard to the battlefield, in addition to making a tapped Power Stone token. Can still be helpful in maybe hard casting a Portal to Phyrexia, or helping us cast or unearth a Cityscape Leveler, 8 mana 8/8 Trampler, and when we cast it, or when the Leveler attacks, we can destroy up to 1 target non-land permanent, and its controller creates a tapped Power Stone token in return, and then has unearth for 8 mana, so we can maybe bring it back one last time with haste and to destroy something on the way out. But the Leveler can also maybe be brought back with our Portal to Phyrexia, in which case we don't have to worry about it getting exiled to unearth. And then we also have 2 copies of Sanctuary Warden as another nice curve topper, and at 6 mana we can still realistically hard cast it, especially if we play the turn 3 Restoration of Aiganjo, maybe discarding a land and putting it back in play on the second chapter. That way we can cast a turn 5 Sanctuary Warden, but sometimes we can also discard Warden and then bring it back with Invoke Justice instead, if we maybe didn't draw a Portal or a Cityscape Leveler. And then the Warden is a 5/5 flyer that enters with 2 shield counters on it, which can protect it from spot removal and sweeper effects. And when the Warden enters a battlefield or attacks, we can remove any counter from a creature or planeswalker we control to draw a card and make a 1/1 citizen token. So we could immediately remove one of the 2 shield counters of Sanctuary Warden to draw and make a 1/1, but we can even remove +1 counters from our creatures, which we can generate with Invoke Justice and even the Wandering Emperor. And we could also remove loyalty counters of Emperor if we prefer that instead. And then the Warden will make for an excellent card draw engine. Making tokens also synergizes nicely with our Wedding Announcement, which can reward us for attacking the opponent with 2 or more creatures to draw a card end of turn, but it can also spawn its own 1/1 tokens, which will eventually get pumped by the Wedding Festivity once the announcement transforms. It's another great turn 3 play in this deck alongside a Restoration. And then our 2-drops, besides Rafine's Informant, include Spirited Companion as a 1/1 that draws when it enters. Could also be playing with a Farmhand, which is guaranteed to find a plains, which can be helpful if we're trying to hit our land drops. Companion a bit more versatile, as it can also find some of our other spells. And then we also have 2 copies of a Reckoner Bankbuster, which can be a nice source of card advantage if we have any spare mana laying around, and as a vehicle can also get extra counters from Invoke Justice for what it's worth. And then our removal comes in the form of Lay Down Arms, which is one of the main strengths of this mono-white build, is that we get to play this incredibly efficient 1-mana removal spell, exiling a creature with mana value less than or equal to the number of planes we control, and its controller also gains 3 life, which is not a big drawback in a deck that's looking to go over the top. And then our mana base includes 20 basic planes for Laydown Arms, so I'm not playing any copies of Aiganjo, which would typically be the case. And then I also have 1 Roadside Reliquary as an extra mana sink in the late game. Can maybe draw 2 cards if we control, let's say, a Bankbuster and a Wedding Announcement, but also works with our more expensive artifacts, and even the Power Stone token from a Repair and Recharge could enable it. And then we're also not playing any copies of Mishra's Foundry, which could be another option if you're looking to play some other non-plains lands in the deck, but of course want to make sure you can still cast your Invoke Justice on curve, so can't make room for too many colorless lands. And then our other removal comes in the form of Depopulate as a nice reset button to destroy all creatures. If the opponent happen to have a multicolored creature, they get to draw a card on the way out, but that's usually not a big deal, especially when Depopulate is at its best against monocolored aggro decks like Mono Red and Mono White anyways. It can also be effective against Soldier Tribal, which is on the rise thanks to the Brothers War, and that's another matchup where having a reset button can be very useful, since sometimes Portal to Phyrexia is not enough if the opponent has a bunch of 1/1 tokens they can sacrifice. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump in some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the play, and our hand is just missing a way to bring back Portal to Phyrexia. Turn 2 Informant, turn 3 Announcement, so hopefully we'll find our 5-mana sorcery. Opponent's on a blue deck. Picking up some removal can also come in handy. And Portal can go since we're nowhere near casting it. Turn 3 Announcement will also apply some nice pressure, and looks like our opponent's on blue-white soldiers. So Thalia making Announcement 1 more expensive. But yeah, Lay Down Arms can still get rid of it, and we found Invoke Justice. So unless they've got another one, or maybe they're packing counter spells, then we should be in the clear. So far so good. The Soldier deck should not have a ton of counter spells, but I have seen some versions with Protect the Negotiators, so that one definitely kind of fits within the Blue-White Soldier game plan. For now we'll attack. Opponent might have reinforcements, but I'm okay trading for the reinforcements here. And then the Wedding Announcement could already bait out a counterspell, just need a land for Invoke Justice. That resolved, so we'll probably see the reinforcements make 2 1/1s. And also helps maybe protect their key creatures from Portal to Phyrexia once we bring it back. Brutal Cathar exiles our token most likely. No, goes for the Informant still. And the Lay Down Arms can get it back, so we can maybe hit our land drop, discarding another Portal. Perfect. And I'm okay trading for their Soldier. Our opponent is playing with Valiant Veteran, which can give their team +1/+1, so the opponent's soldiers are more valuable than my 1/1 tokens. Okay, opponent's passing with 3 mana available. So yeah, they could have a counter spell, but now we can go for a Sanctuary Warden instead. Maybe that will bait out some interaction. Could attack first if I'd like, see if there's a response. Currently not too many creatures in graveyard, so Portal also wouldn't be the most effective necessarily. But let's see if there's any interaction. There is not. And I could keep the 2 shield counters on Warden, although the main interaction from the Soldier deck is exiled based with the Brutal Cathar. So I think 1 shield counter is pretty safe to remove. And then we'll maybe remove the counter from Informant next turn. Opponent had another reinforcements, makes sense, but now Announcement also transformed. So opponent's under a ton of pressure. There's a Valiant Veteran we were talking about. And now an Invoke Justice. It's going to be a lot for the opponent to handle. So bring back Portal, distribute some +1 counters. Could put them all on Sanctuary Warden, although I could also kind of spread them out on the ground creatures. Opponent sacrifices 3. And yeah, that's just going to be too much for the opponent to overcome. Awesome, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, and this hand seems fine. Just need a 3rd land, and then Restoration discards Portal, and we're off to the races. Opponent could be on a mono-blue Haughty Djinn deck, as we see turn 1 consider. So we have a few removal spells at least for cards like Haughty Djinn, Tolarian Terror, another threat in the mono-blue deck. Don't expect my 3 mana play to resolve. I think I would prefer to resolve Restoration actually as a way to discard Portal. Although I would be ecstatic if Announcement resolved. Make disappear. Now we have a second Laydown Arms, so another cheap answer will help us maybe double spell to try and answer something like Haughty Djinn. Opponent played a Delver and still has 2 mana available, so they likely have another card like Make Disappear. So how about we just play Companion for now, and then maybe play Restoration once we have 5 mana, so Make Disappear won't be as effective. Alright, so we can try that next turn. No need to remove the Delver just yet, since it's not a huge threat at the moment, especially if it doesn't transform. Opponent passes, and then we'll attack and play Restoration, I think, after playing a land. The one drawback of Laydown Arms is that it is a sorcery, so if our opponent, let's say, plays a Haughty Djinn and has a way to protect it, to give it hexproof for instance, we won't be able to cast a second copy successfully, although I guess we always have Depopulate in the case of hexproof. In the case of phase out effect, like Slip Out the Back, it's going to be a little trickier. So yeah, Restoration resolved. Possible our opponent had Make Disappear but didn't want to cast it. Question is whether we play Companion or not. Yeah, I guess I'll play it. If it gets countered, then I can bring it back with a second chapter after discarding Portal, and getting a counterspell out of their hand is not a bad thing. Does Delver transform now? Still stays a 1/1. And now it's time for Haughty Djinn, and I'm sure our opponent has at least one way to protect it. So we'll discard Portal. Could have also discarded Informant, I suppose, and then gotten back Informant, and then discarded Portal that way. Probably would have been better. But let's see if Laydown Arms on Haughty Djinn resolves. Opponent's got Slip Out the Back. Alright, so now Depopulate is not going to work out as intended. Opponent no longer has a discount from Haughty Djinn, at least, since it's phased out. So we can resolve Restoration and Rafine's Informant while we're here. So let's do that. And there's Invoke Justice, perfect. So maybe let go of Depopulate. Let's restore. And then next turn we can maybe bait out a counter spell with Laydown Arms and go for Invoke Justice afterwards. Delver does finally transform, opponent revealing Spell Pierce, which we can pay for, although the sequencing could be awkward here. So now discard Companion, get it back for free. Sounds good. And the Cityscape Leveler we're also close to casting. So I might want to Invoke Justice, see what the response is, and then maybe still lay down Arms, although Spell Pierce probably has that covered. So there's probably no way this really works out the way I want it to. I guess we can try this way. It's going to be more awkward for the opponent to counter when we have more mana untapped in the case of cards like Syncopate, and maybe we force them to tap out all the way, and then we can still resolve Invoke Justice. It's going to be a Spell Pierce, I'll pay. So no Invoke Justice this turn. And a Make Disappear, which we can pay for. So our opponent better have another counterspell lined up. So yeah, keeping the extra lands to be able to pay for these conditional counterspells was key, which is why I prioritized keeping some extra lands available. And another Make Disappear, okay. Well, opponent does have a 7-powered Djinn, but they're down to now 2 cards in hand, so there's a decent chance we can resolve Invoke Justice. And that will take care of both Djinns. Opponent passes, since they're afraid of maybe taking a lethal. Yeah, we'll give this a try. I feel like if they had another counterspell, they probably would have attacked. And our opponent explodes, yeah, get back portal, opponent sacrifices both Djinns, and we're in a great spot to win the game. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, and this hand has potential. Companion into a Restoration, lay down arms as removal, eventually a Reliquary for a redraw. So ideally we find something expensive to discard to Restoration in the first 2 turns. Sanctuary Warden, I might still want to hardcast. So we can always discard Plains to help us ramp, although Portal might be the plan now. Could also go for a Wedding Announcement first, and then wait a little bit longer on Restoration so we can postpone our decision. Opponent Esper Colors. What's going to be their turn 3 play? Void Rend destroying the announcement. Fair enough. And another announcement. Seems like a good play here. We get to draw right away. And we'll take it slow on the Restoration. Announcements pretty good in multiples, as it turns out, if you can chain them together. Another Void Rend. And now if I go for Restoration, I'll be guaranteed Sanctuary Warden next turn, so that may be worth it over another announcement. And then I'm not actually sure what I want to discard to the second chapter, since we're not too far from casting a portal. Well, that answers that question. So I'll attack for 2, see if there's any response, and then I could either go for Sanctuary Warden or Wedding Announcement. Don't really want to commit Invoke Justice into 4 open mana when our opponent could be playing counterspells. Wandering Emperor can ambush one of my 1/1s, that's okay. So I can resolve Warden or go for Invoke Justice, although Portal's not too exciting at the moment, so I kind of prefer Sanctuary Warden. And we'll draw. And then next turn we can maybe set up the Invoke Justice. The +1 counters can turn into extra cards with Sanctuary Warden as well. So I don't want to lose my shield counter if I can avoid it. So we'll take 2. And then Go for the Throat will remove the last shield counter. They might have another Go for the Throat. Okay. There's also a scenario where I want to Invoke Justice, bring back Warden right away, but eventually Portal will get back Warden as well, so go for Portal. And then 2 on each seems fine. Emperor's on 1. Could also go 0 and 4. And then put most of the counters on the creature that if they kill it, I can bring back with Portal. But this should leave us in a great position, even if they do have an answer to the 9 mana artifact. And if they don't, we can quickly take over Might Stone and Weak Stone. Okay, that can draw. Or take out Companion. So now our opponent's just dead on board. Bankbuster is not going to change that, so bring back Sanctuary Warden. And attack for lethal. So yeah, this was a pretty one-sided game. Showing the power of Wedding Announcement early on, and then eventually Invoke Justice as well. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, and this hand has potential. Informants can discard a Leveler. Maybe go for turn 3 announcements and wait on Restoration for a bit longer. And there's Portal as well, so plenty of juicy artifacts to discard. And against banned colors, yeah, I guess I'll discard Portal here. So turn 3 Wedding Announcement, I think, is the plan still. Opponent with a Root Coil Creepers, or opponent's a ramp deck. Okay. I'll offer the trade. and get the announcement going. Ideally find a land next turn so Emperor can grow with a 1/1 to attack past the Root Coil Creeper, but we'll see what else the opponent can come up with here. Opponent's gonna pass with 4 mana up, and no doubt some instant speed plays. So yeah, I think I'm still in favor of attacking. Could also go for another Informant, discard Leveler, and then if I hit my land drop I can at least add a Bank Buster to the board. Or we can go for Restoration, which guarantees my land should it resolve. But I kind of want to draw a card of Wedding Announcement, so I'll attack with both, even if it means losing the 1/1. And then we're hoping to find an Invoke Justice to get back our Portal. Opponent actually trades for Informant. Do they have their own Wandering Emperor perhaps? They do. So Creeper grows and gains first strike. But I'm glad to get the Emperor out of the way, since that could eventually exile a Leveler as well. Announcement draws a Plains, so we're ready to cast an Invoke Justice if it shows up. Although the blue mana points towards counter spells being in our future as well. Having our own instant speed plays like Emperor is helpful there, as well as Bank Buster as a mana sink we can activate during the opponent's turn if needed.
We must protect the people.
For now, Emperor makes a 2/2 and a Broker's Ascendancy. Okay. So opponent is tapping out, but yeah, they're quickly going to present an insurmountable board, although Repair and Recharge is a nice addition for sure. So let's discard an Informant, bring it back. And discard Leveler. And then we can Repair and Recharge. Portal to Phyrexia. And that should buy us a lot of time. Token attacks Emperor. And the extra Power Stone token will also be helpful in eventually unearthing the Leveler. Could also bring back a Leveler with Portal to Phyrexia, of course. Or we can go for the opponent's Reinforcements, which will help us against opposing tokens. But pretty tempting to just get the Leveler here. Alright, Soaring City to bounce Portal back. So we will eventually be able to recast it, at least. Emperor makes a token, and the Ascendancy will keep on adding counters. Alrighty, so this turn don't have any amazing attacks, unless we want to send Informant and maybe pump it with Wandering Emperor. Could maybe send everything at Wandering Emperor just to make sure it dies. Yeah, I guess I like that. And we'll see how they block and act accordingly. If we can leave Emperor at 1 loyalty, then if they want to make another Samurai, at least it will die. Yeah, I guess now, as opposed to saving Informant, I think we make sure to kill Emperor. And then I can still play a Bank Buster, which, if needed, could also be crewed to block a Root Coil Creeper, and it would be a 5/5 thanks to Festivity. And then next turn, Unearth Leveler, turn after maybe play Portal. And I can't wait to get rid of this Ascendancy, which is quite scary. Opponent's got a Storm the Festival. Okay, so let's see what they hit. That's definitely a way to come back. Opponent found Urza Assembles the Titans, makes sense with Ascendancy and all the Planeswalkers. And a Wedding Announcement. Bottoms all 4, so unlikely to reveal a Planeswalker here. Found a Sunset Revelry instead. Okay. So, trigger. And we get to untap, finding another portal. So, I can crew Bank Buster, since we're not gonna activate it to draw this turn. And then do we make a Samurai? Maybe better off exiling the Creeper. And Leveler Either goes for Urza Assembles the Titans, or I guess, let's see, yeah, we just have lethal here if we take out the token, so I guess that makes more sense. I got too carried away looking at Portal next turn to provide more value, but sometimes you just have lethal on board. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a one-lander, unfortunately, but also missing a way to bring back Portal, so we'll mulligan. This is better, missing a big thing to put in the graveyard now. Get rid of Repair and Recharge, since Invoke Justice is almost always better. So play Informant, and we'll see what we draw. Opponent might have a cut down, and yeah, Portal, perfect draw here. Cut down can still kill Informant. And then hopefully your opponent's not playing with Trespasser, which could exile the Portal. Play Announcements, and then just hoping to string together a few land drops. Emperor into Invoke Justice would be quite powerful. Opponent's got the Yawgmoth Praetor here. Okay, I think I take it for now. Next turn we can maybe double block. And a companion to draw hopefully a land. Alright, that also works. Exile the Praetor. Yeah, I'll stay back to block, although not sure if I'm interested. Might be better off attacking and drawing with Announcement. Opponent's got 4 mana, and then mono black, you know what that means. Shieldred. It's gonna be a Liliana of the Veil instead. It's gonna plus, don't mind discarding another Portal. Although we're getting to the point where Liliana's gonna put us under too much pressure and threaten to discard Invoke Justice. Land was a good draw. Send all at Liliana, and then we can pump whichever creature they block. And then we'll draw off Announcement, so we can discard whatever we draw into.
I've learned much during my travels.
And Wandering Emperor is safe from a blitzed underdog.
You know, I think you look better.
Land is good. Okay, so hopefully they -2 Liliana now, so we can Invoke Justice next turn. And yeah, there's a -2. And yeah, I'll get rid of the companion, I think. Since we can eventually bring it back with Portal. Blitzed underdog is totally fine. So everything's going according to plan here.
Watch out. I never give up.
And Mono Black's not gonna have many answers to artifacts. So even though we're not making the opponent sacrifice anything, this is still gonna be very impactful. And we'll put 2 on each. And make that 5 each for a nice 10 damage. And there's no shortage of creatures in graveyard to get back.
Those who get in my way tend to regret it.
Liliana makes me sacrifice a 5/5. And Misery's Shadow can exile future creatures. So, can go for Companion or Informant. Informant, I guess, would be slightly larger, since I can discard Leveler, which I'm not close to casting. And then by discarding a Leveler, I can bring it back next turn with Portal. Announcement was nice too. So, let's just go face here. Emperor can make an extra Samurai. Play Announcement, will be empty-handed. Liliana cannot minus, and the plus won't be very effective. Okay, we'll see if our opponent can find a way out, but it's not going to be easy. And yeah, that's a good game indeed. Got to do our thing against Mono Black, but of course if our opponent had access to Graveyard Trespasser, they could have exiled the Portal, and the game would have been a lot more difficult. So, got lucky there. And yeah, we got to see our mono-white Portal deck in action, and I was quite pleased with how it played out. definitely will have moments where you either draw all your expensive cards without a discard outlet, or also discard outlets or ways to reanimate without finding your big expensive plays. So don't be afraid to mulligan hands where you only have one of the two elements, but as long as you can play an early wedding announcement or restoration, you should still be in fine shape. So yeah, that's going to do it for my first gameplay video here on the official Magic Arena channel. Let me know in the comments which deck you would like to see next, but for now, I want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.